Man, this is high up. Hey guys, welcome back to the King Kong review series. So last time, we took a look at the cease and desist project that was Universal's 1975 remake, The Legend of King Kong. And while Dino De Laurentiis' film came and went, Universal did eventually get full custody of future Kong projects. Two of which brings us to today's episode, where Universal tried a second attempt to remake Kong in the 90s with a director that seemed like an obvious choice. So let's not waste any time and take a look at John Landis' attempt at a remake of King Kong. So a little side note before we get started, this production is a little scarce in terms of information, but by looking at events in history and articles that have been reported, let's see if we can put the pieces together. So the best place to start is where Universal left off. Paramount and Dino De Laurentiis' remake of King Kong went off without a hitch and was a well-performed success with the giant robot debacle, the publicity, and Dino De Laurentiis' self-promotion. But there were still some other studios working on remakes and spoofs of Kong on their own, using the book under public domain defense in order to pass by any copyrighted lawsuits. One of these producers was B-movie legend Roger Corman, of all people. He wanted to do a remake as well and had made several announcements about it, but didn't get as far as that, unfortunately. And considering how other Kong projects were doing, it was probably for the better. Hell, even David L. Hewitt, who directed the 1969 schlock The Mighty Gorga, was planning to do a remake of his own film with a higher budget and stop-motion animated puppets. But even he didn't want to be in the massive Kong clusterfuck that was going on in Hollywood. While Kong 76 was a box office smash, De Laurentiis wasn't really happy that it was performing less than he expected, and he had ambitious plans for sequels, but knew he had to get to Universal for the rights. Meanwhile, Universal did manage to take a healthy profit with their part of the Kong remake success, and they too had ambitious plans of their own. With the Universal Studios tour in California being a great tourist attraction, the studio ultimately wanted to improve and get into the theme park business to compete with Disneyland. So, in the early 80s, with the help of Steven Spielberg, they began to make plans to convert the studio into a working theme park, with new rides and attractions to boost up sales. But they wanted something big. Something massive to draw the crowds, and who better to make tickets sell than the biggest star in Hollywood, King Kong. And in 1986, Universal Studios Hollywood opened the King Kong Encounter to a massive success. It was such a huge hit with guests that in 1990 they opened a similar King Kong ride in their newly built Orlando studio called Kongfrontation. And it was pretty clear that not only were these rides the crown jewels for Universal, but that King Kong himself was quite popular again. So much so that in New York they set up a life-size balloon of Kong atop the Empire State Building for the original film's 50th anniversary. Seeing their success in the early 90s, Universal thought now was the time to dust off the old files and finally produce their remake of King Kong. In fact, some have said that Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis, fresh off the Back to the Future trilogy, suggested that the studio should proceed with a remake. The first thing Universal did was hire Robert Zemeckis as a producer. Given his major success with the Future trilogy, really put him in the spotlight as a well-seeked filmmaker. The real question was, who would be tasked with directing a project like this? Rumors suggested that the studio offered the project to Spielberg immediately, but the director passed on the project given he was already working on another production involving prehistoric creatures on an island.
My one precedent for Jurassic Park was King Kong. King Kong was the high watermark of special effects, creating a world that I never knew existed, especially the great fight between King Kong and the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Almost like a sumo wrestling match. But as a young person, that scene had no peer, and I think that was my high watermark for imagining what it would be like to do a King Kong of today. And certainly I don't consider Jurassic Park a classic as King Kong is a classic, but I was so inspired by King Kong, that was one of the reasons I think I wanted to make Jurassic Park.
What do they got in there, King Kong?
But he did make a suggestion for a director who was a big-time fan of the original Kong. No, not him. We'll save that for next time. Enter director John Landis, better known for his work on Schlock, Animal House, and of course one of Universal's biggest successes, The Blues Brothers.
Bullshit.
He's also a big-time Kong fan, so it seemed natural that he was the right choice for the project. There were also rumors of casting at the time that Robert De Niro was listed to play Carl Denham. How perfect would that have been? And if this project went post-1994, I think I know the perfect actress to play Anne. Hey, as long as Kong is not green, I think we're pretty safe here. But then something interesting happened. In order to save some dough, the studio and Landis wanted to use Bo Goldman's original 1975 script. But with the success of the two Kong attractions, both taking place in the present rather than the 1930s, the studio wanted to change it up a bit and have the Kong rides be the source of tone for the movie. With that said, Landis went ahead and rewrote the script to take the original story and characters of Kong and place them in the present time of the 1990s. Now how would I be able to put this all together since most of it comes from loose articles and word of mouth at the time? Well, this item may give us some clues. See, while Universal had the rides in production, they had ambitious plans for a variety of merchandise to tie in with the attractions, one of which is an interesting piece, but is said to be one of the rarest arcade games in existence.
Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
This, of course, was the King Kong pinball game by Data East Games. It was meant to be mass-produced in the 1990s, but only a few complete prototypes exist today. But what's really interesting about this game is the art design, which looks very similar to the Kongfrontation designs. And if you look closely at the illustrations, it does paint a pretty good picture of what the Universal John Landis production could have looked like. It would have had all the elements of the original Kong, but updated to the 1990s. We have the island, the wall, Kong's battle with his fellow dinosaurs, all of which would have made an interesting take on the story. But the ending seemed a little different. As you can see from the artwork on the pinball machine, Kong does not climb the Empire State Building as he's known for, but instead a larger skyscraper, the Sears Tower, which meant that the city part of the story would not take place in New York, but instead the city of Chicago. Now that is an odd but pretty cool idea, and I think to make Kong a contemporary film for the 90s, Chicago would have been an exciting and new place to go. However, it ends up as an overthought concept. For some reason or another, John Landis left the project. It's not clear why though, but it seemed like Universal was now stuck with an ambitious project, but no director to helm it. But overall, would John Landis' Kong been a great take on the character? I believe so, and I assume it would have been massive and given Universal a great success. In my humble opinion, it would have kept my favorite ride still in production today, but I can only dream. I give this attempt an 8.5 out of 10. But Universal wasn't about to give up just yet. Tune in next time when we take a look at Universal's third attempt to remake Kong and giving the spot to an ambitious young New Zealand film director. We'll see you in the finale, folks!